Good afternoon. This week, we're joined on the Business Spotlight interview by John Bowden, Managing Director of ATEC. And John, welcome to Business Spotlight.
Really nice to meet you. Yeah, looking forward to it.
Thanks, John. Look, this session, it's 15 minutes, quick fire questions. It's designed for two reasons. One, to get your message about your company out there, to let all our viewers see more about your company. And also for the business owners and the people who are thinking about going into business to learn more about business and get some hints and tips from you. But I thought we'd just start off by talking about your story in terms of how you came to be where you are now, if that's okay. I know you're relatively recently into the position of Managing Director of the business.
Yeah, so I took the route into employment through an apprenticeship. So did an engineering technical apprenticeship with what was at the time Vickers Defence Systems, that was later BAE Systems. Kind of really honed my skills primarily around engineering. So most of my career I've spent in engineering, and I think that I've always had a kind of an attitude to give things a try. So I veered off that path and probably tried a few things in quality and other sort of aligned parts of the business. I've been with ATEC for just coming up 12 years. So I joined here as Director of Engineering, then Technical Director. And then probably 3 and a bit years ago, I approached the then business owner to undertake a management buyout, which we completed just over 2 years ago. And as a byproduct, I took the role of Managing Director. So it's been a great journey. I've surrounded myself with sort of good people. I've been open to experiences, and it's felt for probably the last 3 or 4 years like it's been the right move for me to move into this role.
So not only have you taken on the job of Managing Director, but you've taken on the job of business owner as well. So 2 massive changes for a lot of people. A lot of our clients undertake at some point. What's been the biggest challenges for you over the last sort of 3 years throughout that change, would you say?
It's hard to talk about the last 3 years without talking about some of the sort of political and other things that have happened. In terms of timing, when I set off on the management buyout, Brexit was my potential biggest headache. And then during the management buyout, COVID happened. I think just the uncertainty of the market has been really challenging. The business I approached to buy has gone through a lot of changes since just in this last 3 years. The market itself's definitely been challenging, uncertain, lots of volatility. But I think it's been a good test of the team pulling together. So I think the challenges have been reduced turnover, clearly. I think, big impacts, not having the cash you once had, not having the certainty that was previously in the business, and having to make plans and make big decisions quickly. COVID being the obvious time where news was coming out on a daily basis, and people in the business wanted an answer the next morning, and the reality was you didn't have an answer the next morning, so you had to do a little bit of consulting, and but I think it allowed us to be pretty agile, and I think those businesses that developed during that period are a better business because of it.
I think one of the things you mentioned, being agile there, I think one of the most important things for businesses nowadays is, one, to make a plan, but secondly, don't be fixed in your mind. Be ready to change and be quick to change and to develop. Stick to your goals, but be willing to change the plan in order to get there at the end of the day.
I think a lot of plans can become shelfware, can't they? You put them up on the wall, and you've got to. They're live, aren't they? You make a 5-year plan. You tell me anybody who's got the next 5 years potted down to a infinite detail that won't ever change. So you just need to be able to, like you say, a bit of agility, be brave, make some decisions, and change the plan if it needs to change.
Yeah. I can't imagine what was going through your head when COVID came along in the middle of a management buyout.
Yeah, but concern, but I think the net result was the same. It's still, it was kind of a real genuine purpose-driven want. So the purpose doesn't change, does it, through challenging times? And I think it was just a case of it's made it more challenging, but it's still the right result.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, look, you can't build a company the size of yours without a great team of people underneath you. And I know you mentioned that you came from an apprenticeship originally, and that you've got quite a number of apprentices in your business. What do you see as the advantage of taking people through that apprenticeship route?
I think it's, if you look at the market currently, the employment market and the, well-documented skills shortages, I took a decision probably 7 or 8 years ago that growing your own is probably the safest bet. I didn't really know, we didn't really know what the market might look like in years to come. But, you know, we've got some really good people through that process. We obviously recruit like anybody else. Not everything's about apprenticeships, but, you know, some of the skills that are lacking in the market are skills we need. And we have some really skilled people in the business who act as mentors for apprentices. So it just feels like a natural way to grow the business. And we're committed to taking on at least 2 apprentices every year. So, and we'll continue to do that.
Brilliant. Growing your own is important. Bringing on new apprentices is important, but also keeping people is equally important nowadays. Now, I notice, you know, you're very strong on your core values: quality, consistency, professionalism, social value. Are those recent innovations into the business, or have those values been stated and been part of your company for a long while now?
I think the first sort of 3 social values, core values, were developed probably 6 or 7 years ago.
Yeah.
And they developed with the team. So I think, like most companies, we sort of looked at core values. We decided we should look to have some. They were a good purpose for the business. Through investors in people, it was something that was identified that would just help us in terms of the how the business ran, and it's, you know, the kind of common view of the business. So and we reviewed them again probably 18 months ago, and we added social value as the 4th core value. We've been doing what's now called social value, previously CSR, you know, all of that good work. We've been doing that for longer than I've been here. And some of the retention, I think that's important for people on retention, because they see what we do with charity partners, what we do on our net zero campaigns, cycle to work schemes, electric car schemes, 4-day working weeks, you know, all the things that we do to look after our own, but also look after the community around us. And I think people buy into that. And if they don't, maybe it's not the right company for them. But, you know, that's probably the key to retention for me, is all of that, you know, people having the same values.
That's definitely true. One of my philosophies is to recruit on attitude first and skills second. Yeah. You know, you can teach skills, but you can't teach attitude. So it's important that you get the right people with the right values that match your values, of course, and then you know that you're going to have a good match going on. What other kinds of things do you do within the business to motivate and retain people then?
Well, I think there's the kind of having that bit of fun around social value, you know. So we do a lot of charity events. We have wellness days. We have an ICE committee, which is an employee-run committee where, you know, every quarter they kind of have a meeting with myself and some of the other managers. They bring forward ideas. I think it's really important you then implement the ideas within reason, of course. And I think people feel they've got a voice. I think a lot of people come into the business and they describe it as a family feel. And I think that's important, but they also would say it is, people are empowered and it's kind of in control, clean, tidy, that type of thing. So it's a good working environment to work in.
Yeah. There was some work done a while ago on what was important to people when they were in roles, in jobs. And, you know, from the outside looking in, often people or particularly smaller business owners will panic about money and about paying the people enough money. And money is important because it allows you to live, you know, it allows you to buy the essentials. But the other things that came out as more important than that in every survey that they did were about a sense of belonging, a sense of involvement and inclusion in the company. So I think it's really important what you're doing there in terms of, you know, keeping your staff as, you know, as part of a family, if you will.
Yeah, I think being open and honest with them. I think a lot of businesses don't like to share information with their employees. They hold back. They make a decision that maybe they don't need it. I have quite a different view of that. I think kind of sharing information, and it's not absolutely everything, but it's, you know, the majority of the information in the business is on the walls, visual management, KPIs. I talk to them about finances. They know about the goals. It's part of our quarterly kind of updates to the staff. And so they get a chance to feel part of something rather than just doing a job, which, you know, can be tiresome, can't it?
Absolutely, yeah. Now, obviously, you do a lot of technical skills training, particularly with your apprentices, and then I'm sure it's ongoing with your team in the factory. You obviously have a layer of management, and how do you develop your people further away from their core competency skills as well, in terms of learning and development for progression?
Yeah, I mean, we're investors in people gold, so we have a real kind of internal drive commitment that, I mean, everybody who joins here gets a development plan. I'm really, really clear that the development plan is theirs and not their managers to tell them what they're doing next. So we encourage people to come forward with identifying needs, you know, things that they could do better, things that they'd like to try. Generally speaking, the answer to that is yes. You know, kind of again, it just builds that, you know, I'm not wasting my time asking for this project management training because I know they won't do it, you know, generally speaking, unless it's maybe cake making or something, you know, that's not really aligned to the job. But, you know, we say yes to it. I'm part of peer groups, so I'm challenged all the time about what we're doing in, you know, kind of out there in industry. We engage with local schools, so people go through training so that they're equipped to do, you know, dealing with, you know, children, leadership training. I mean, there's at any given time, there's probably 10 or 20 people on some level of training. And I think the other side I try to do with people as well is, you know, people start off in roles. That role might not be the final destination. So I try to get from people what they love, you know, what their sort of passion and purpose is. And I think you just have to be brave with that, because sometimes their passion and purpose isn't what they're doing. But I'd much rather know what that is and see if we can make that work in the business.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I've heard you speak before, John, and I know you mentioned your passion and your purpose within the business, and that you encourage everybody else to find theirs. And as you say, sometimes it might not be aligned with your business in the long term, but I can guarantee you that if you're helping them to find their passion, their purpose in the longer term, they'll give everything they can for you while they are with you. So,
yes,
you know, if you can help people like that, then you will get the most out of them. Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure.
Look, you've got a great website. I've had a quick look through the website, and I've watched some of your videos as well. But there was one thing I've got to ask you about in the video, where you're talking about the factory and all the things that you can do within the factory. You sort of have a run through, a fly through. There's one particular thing I've got to ask you. It says a gnome test. What on earth is a gnome test?
Oh, if only it was if it was really the gnome. So
I really want it to be something about. I really would like to see a gnome.
So gnome is a gas turbine engine that was developed by Rolls-Royce that it flies the Sea King helicopter. So we have the fuel control system. We manufacture and repair and overhaul that system. So yeah, the gnome is it's a funny name, isn't it? Yeah, kind of, but
the reality,
very engineering in reality.
Yeah, the reality is much less interesting than the thought of what it might be, but I'm sure it's still interesting anyway. What are your aspirations for the company and for your team over the next 5 years or so then, John?
So we've got a 5-year plan to take the business to, in turnover terms, north of 7 million. We're not particularly motivated by turnover. I kind of just mention it because it is our target. Really, we want to take the number of employees beyond 50. So we're currently sat at 39. So taking the numbers of people up kind of tells me that the business is going in the right direction. Yeah, just kind of building on what we're making a shift from being quite a legacy focused business. So we've got lots of products that are our own, that have been our own for decades, and they are sort of on the diminishing side now. So we've won a couple of recent big contracts, and we want to keep that momentum. You know, success is kind of infectious, isn't it? So, you know, just keeping on that path, and you know, it's going well so far.
Good. Look, I can't believe we're almost out of time already, John. Just a couple of quick fire questions to finish, if I could. What's been your single biggest learning as a business owner or a managing director?
I think probably being brave. You know, being brave and making decisions quick. I think quite often the decisions are big, and that can cause people to stall and, you know, deliberate over things. And the reality is, I think your gut knows the answer within seconds and minutes usually. and the deliberation does you no good. So I think just knowing that something's not right and dealing with it is probably the biggest learning. Gives you a lot of time back, to be honest, and long term, I think when you make those decisions, they turn out to be for the right reasons and add value to the business.
Brilliant. Is there one particular sort of resource, learning resource that you recommend for other people, either a video, a book, a podcast, or something that you've listened to that you think others would find useful?
I mean, it kind of a bit life-changing for me, but when we talked about purpose, and I think what got me thinking, although it wasn't a video on purpose per se, it was Brené Brown, vulnerability, and just kind of understanding that vulnerability, I think it still has negative connotations, but being vulnerable is where you grow. Being vulnerable, you should get comfortable with, and I think that really got my mindset, changed really. I think when I first watched that video, and it's relatively short, I thought a lot differently about things and situations I throw myself into.
Yeah, that's one of the TED Talks, wasn't it? That.
Yeah, it was one of the TED Talks. Quite an old one now. Yeah.
Brilliant. I mean, there's loads of great TED Talks out there. I'm always recommending sort of different TED Talks for people. Okay, and final question. If you had one piece of advice for your 18-year-old self, what would it be?
I think it'd be a hybrid of those last two things. I think it would be get comfortable feeling vulnerable and be brave. I think when you're kind of that young individual in in an organization and everybody knows more than you and they've all gone a little bit further than you, you probably hold back asking for things, and you probably hold back pushing yourself forward, because that confidence kind of does grow with experience. So I think getting comfortable with being vulnerable and being brave and pushing yourself forward, I think would be my advice. I think you would propel forward hellishly quicker in your career than probably I did, and most people do.
Brilliant. John, it's been a real pleasure. How do people find out more about ATEC Solutions?
Obviously, they can go to our website, so www.atec.solutions. And we've got various things, going on at the moment with open days. We're a really door open company. So we're based in Worsley, Manchester. If people are interested in what we do at just a manufacturing level, if they want to see what we do and maybe pinch some ideas, because I think that's how we all advance, just reach out. More than happy for people to be here. Brilliant.
Lovely. I'll put the link to your website, to your LinkedIn profile, if that's okay, and also to that Brené Brown TED Talk as well. John, thank you very much. It's been a real pleasure. It's been really interesting. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Speak soon.
Have a brilliant year. Cheers. Bye.
Yeah. Cheers. Bye.